Oh, dear Bo. Super nice.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. And to make time for this short interview, I think 30, 45 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
I reached out to you because I see a lot of posts of you on Facebook, and I've seen a couple of interviews that you have done with other people. And you're always so full of love and vibing high and really interested in everyone. And I was like, oh, I want to know you. I want to know more about you.
Mm.
So
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for reaching out and asking me. And yeah, I'm here to play, so whatever feels fun.
yeah. So one of the things that I would love for you to speak about is and it's maybe it is because I did the same, but actually no, I'm going to ask the question and then we'll see what comes up. So you speak about your name often. You changed your name to Bo. So you were born as Timothy Waterman
Mhm.
and you have changed. I don't know when it was. Maybe you want to speak about that. I'm curious about how that came about.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of meaning and context for sure. And it goes back a few years now. I was in this really amazing ceremony, and
What kind of ceremony was it?
it was plant medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca or something else?
Um, no, it was actually just like there was like a number of different things, so it was just like it wasn't any one thing. So yeah, it was just like a combination, and so it was interesting that evening I just came to, like I was out of it. It was kind of like I was asleep, and I just came to, and as I came to, there's like these words flowing out. And as I started to become like, aware again, I'm like, oh, and like it was like this transmission. And
That was
as
coming
my
from you. That
yeah,
this transmission was coming from you. Yeah.
out of my mouth, and my brain was starting to become aware. And my brain starts to look around the room and people are going like, yes, yes, this is truth. This is so true. And I was just like, okay. And the words are still flowing, and my brain started to pay attention to the words that were flowing. It was like, oh wow, yeah, this is really potent and powerful. And
Yeah. Can I interrupt for a second again?
yeah.
So, how long had you been speaking at that point? Do you know?
Um yeah, that's something I actually don't know. Like it could have been like 20, 30 minutes. I only became aware at the end, and I actually had to ask people questions because again, and this is the reason why I became aware is because someone said to me, they said, "Hey Tim," and that kind of woke my brain up.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, like, like my brain starts to become aware. And again, I'm noticing the words, I'm looking around the room. People are like, yes, this is so true. But that's what woke my brain up. Someone was like, hey, Tim. And so I become aware, and the person in the room, they stopped and they're like, actually, they were like, I'm aware that, I'm just aware of what's going on, like um how should I address, this presence? And I felt into my heart, and I just felt into my heart. I felt into the energy, and the name I heard was Sovereign Rainbow.
Mm.
And so I just said, Sovereign Rainbow. And they were like, okay. And they just wanted to move across the room. They didn't want to be rude. So they just were like, hey, like, is it okay if I just move across the I was just like, of course. Uh, and that was like the first time I became aware of that name. And just as time went on, because this was a few years ago, I just realized that that is like, that to me is the essence of my soul. Like that's the
Your inner being?
vibrational,
Would you
what's
say
that?
your inner being? Would you
Yeah.
say it's your inner being? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just the vibration, the vibrational resonance in words.
Yeah.
And so I just, really began to integrate it. And and then it felt fun to play with it. And so Bo was like a short version, like a nickname. And I just started telling close friends, I think like last year, and then I started to talk about it online. So
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely has a story to it, and that's the story.
I love it. And so it's because I know the name Bo as you spell it, and also B-O, like a friend of mine has twins, and one of the boys is called Bo, B-O. And now that you give this explanation, Sovereign Rainbow, I'm like, oh yeah, rainbow. It's like also, or do you pronounce that bow? Like when you make this, like with
Mm.
a piece of ribbon, is it bow or is it also bow?
I I say it Bo, and but I spell it the Beau just to for fun. And
Yeah,
so it's like you know, I
it's
I
more
use
fancy.
again I use the RAIN, but then the Beau to make it fun.
Yeah,
Um, it's a
it's a
play
bit
on
more
words.
fancy to me.
Yeah.
It's like why not spruce that up as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just the fun and the creativity, so why not?
exactly. Why not? And then, so in the last interview that I heard, because I think you did another one after that one, the last interview I heard of yours was with Jill.
Mhm.
And there you spoke about that you are planning to change your name, or can you remind me again? What did you say there?
It was just I think in the intro I had mentioned that I'm talking about it more, playing with it more because, it's like with the way things are going, it very much could become a very permanent thing. And so it's just I'm just letting people know because, in the casual conversations that I have, people say, how should I address you? And so I tell them, and I just like to let people know if they hear in the interview, if they hear that name, they'll know why. So I just
Yeah,
like to give context so people aren't confused.
yeah, yeah. Well, I love it, and I love that you follow that. And I want to ask you something about it in a moment. I can imagine that it's uncomfortable for yourself. I don't know. I'm just assuming because people will be like, huh, but your name is this, huh? And have you had that you felt uncomfortable around it? That you're like, oh my God, here I come. My name is actually not Tim anymore, it's Bo. Did you have that?
Well, I have friends that have done it, and so I'm a bit more used to it in my own experience. And so the people that I've shared it with are people that you could say they're on the same wavelength. And so like the people that I've really told it to have been like, oh, okay, I'll just start saying that.
I love that
Yeah. It hasn't made
because
it
that's
to
how.
just say it hasn't made it to every circle of my life as of yet, but the circles that it has, people are just like, oh, okay. And people usually say, oh, I like it, like they're like, I like it. So
I love that. I love that a lot. And the reason why because we've been speaking about this now for a couple of minutes, and the reason why I find this such a fun topic is because mm, I don't think it's quite that normal yet. It might become more normal. I also know more people who have done it, and I did it myself. Like I added a name to my name.
mhm. Okay.
And yeah, you only know me as that, actually. The first, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I decided to put Victoria in front of my birth names when
Mm.
I was in New Zealand, my last trip. But, and um, I love how you and me and different people just listen to that inner urge of wanting to do this, because there's no logic. There's never logic to anything that we do.
Hmm.
There's only intuition.
Yep.
Might be, I don't know if you had it. I thought, oh, really? Okay, I'm just gonna go with, So
Hmm.
there might be some um mental game going on that says, this is weird. Am I really gonna do this? And I'm just going for it anyway. I don't know if you ever had that with that. No, probably not. You just said so, but with other
Hmm.
things perhaps. And I love that it's, for me, it's normalizing weird. Like, I don't think it's weird. I think it's the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to be, that you just follow your guidance
Yeah.
without questioning it, because that's the way to go. And I love that you do that. And so tell me a bit more about, so I've read some things on your Facebook and your blog. About this change you made at one point, that you really didn't feel like yourself, and you're like, okay, something has to change. What was the drop that made you realize, I don't want this anymore. I want to change. I have to change something.
Are you still referring to the name?
No, I'm
Oh, okay.
sorry. No, to
Okay.
to your life in general.
Oh, okay. Maybe maybe it's the not too long ago, probably like a month ago or so, I posted a number of short stories, yeah, just about like when I had turned 30 and how I did restart my life at 30. That was 10 years ago now. And I wanted to share the story because I hadn't really talked about it in length in a long time. And I know that a lot of the people that are on my Facebook now haven't really seen that much of it. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I want to put it out in a more formal way and just share the details because it is my story. And it still serves and empowers me. Like it's actually empowering me a lot where I am in my life now because, it's 10 years later. And so on paper, that means 40. And it's like the same questions I was asking back then, I'm asking again 10 years later, but I'm in a much bigger way. And
Mm.
so my
Can you give me an
story,
example? Can you give me an example of
yeah,
such?
well, this is the way, yeah, this is the way it's landing. I like to talk about it. So in my 20s, I had lived life a certain way. It was kind of the way I was told to live life and had a lot to do with people pleasing and meeting expectations that were placed on me from outside myself. And so I did that, but it felt like my insides were dying. It felt like my soul or my inner being was just kind of like it needed to be resuscitated, if you will. Because it was not a life that I was excited about. And
Mm.
I just wasn't enjoying it. And so I began to ask myself, because things actually deteriorated quite a bit. Even my physical health really began to suffer in big ways.
Yeah.
Panic attacks, something that it wasn't diagnosed, but something that felt like a stomach ulcer, which
Yeah.
is, that's painful.
Which makes sense, right? When you think about it, like your body is going to protest when you're not being true to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always say that, yeah, the body is it's like the red flag of all red flags, being like you're not listening to your inner truth, your heart, your soul, your inner being, whatever you want to refer to it as. You're not listening, you're not being true to yourself. And so like if the body has to create conditions to raise those red flags, in my experience, it has and it will if it needs to. And what I realized at that point is I said, what have I never tried? Because just life really wasn't working
Yeah.
with the place that I was in mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, just it wasn't working. It was very clear. So I asked myself, I said, what have I never tried? I said, what have I never tried? And the answer was that I had never tried following my heart.
Mm,
And
what a great question. And what
yeah,
an amazing answer.
yeah, yeah. I was just like, what have I never tried? And I was like, I've never tried following my heart. And I knew what my heart was asking of me. At that point, I had never lived into a dream that I had since I was probably like 11 or 12, and it was studying acting in Los Angeles. And I just never went for it. Like there was all these stories that would talk me out of it. It was too big, too scary, too many what ifs.
Yeah.
And I thought about it after high school, but again, just like I just kind of fell into
Rat race.
the typical way, that kind of like most other people were living their lives. And so I just, I pushed it aside. But when I was coming to 30, I was just like, I asked that question, what have I never tried? And that was the answer. I've never tried following my heart. And my heart was like, go to Los Angeles, study acting. And so I was just like, okay, this is the only thing I've never tried. I was like, well, if this is what it is, then I'm just going to say yes to this. And I did. And literally from that point, everything in my life at that time fell away so that I could have a clean slate and
Yeah.
start anew. And I did.
Yeah.
And it
And I,
was, oh, go ahead.
oh,
Yeah.
and I, so you talk about it as if it was just like, yeah, I got a piece of toast out of the toaster, but obviously there was turmoil going on. I would guess, like, so how was, so you made the decision, I'm going to follow my heart, I'm going to study acting in LA. What was happening within you? Like, how did you know? Because of course there was bells and a panic, but you still did it because you knew this is it. Like, how, looking back, how did you know that this was really it?
It was just coming from my heart. Like I was able to hear my heart. It said, you know what you've been pushing off like
Mm,
practically your whole life at this point. Because again, that dream started when I was like probably like 11 or something. And this is like 19 years later. So my heart was just like, you know what you've been ignoring.
yeah,
You know what you've been playing down and pushing aside. It's like you just keep finding reasons and excuses to like
mm,
to stay here and not live into your dream. But
yeah,
it's like, but you know what you've never tried. You know what the invitation of your dream has been for all these years. It's like
yeah.
you've just never gone for it. And so when it came to like I was at a point where I could barely get out of bed because the ulcer like condition was so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when I just looked inside and I said, what have I never tried?
Mm,
And my heart was just like, you already know what the answer is. You've never said yes to it.
yeah.
And so once I said yes to it, it was done.
Mm,
Like literally things began to unfold. Like I
yeah,
said, just all these things in my life that were the reasons to stay, like one by one,
yeah. Fell
either they
away.
fell away naturally or I
Yeah,
just knew I had to end them.
yeah,
I also was just taking action to move in that direction. So like I was looking at, you know, room rentals in Los Angeles. I was looking at neighborhoods. I had met some people that lived there, so I was talking to them,
yeah,
asking questions.
yeah,
And I had a lot of like nerves, of course, because I had never left my hometown, like other than like some like vacation type stuff. So I
yeah,
had nerves and I was just like, holy cow, what am I stepping into?
yeah,
Like, and I was also going, back then in my mindset, the only way that you could really receive an income was having a job. So, I was just like, well, I'm going to have to get a job. And it wasn't really working out trying to talk to people from the East Coast. It just didn't seem like they really paid attention to people who are on the other side of the country. This was again like 10 years ago.
yeah,
It's not like it is now where all these people are working remote.
yeah,
Um, so I was just like, okay, well, I'll just plan to find something when I get there. So yeah, I was going there with some savings. I had rented a room and I was going to be just packing up stuff in my car and driving across the country. Thankfully, I had a sister that wanted to drive with me. But yeah, there was nerves. There was like, oh my gosh, like, again, my dialogue at that time was like, I'm going there. Hopefully I can find a job. so I had like the nerves, but I also just, it was so clear that if my life was going to turn around, it was about listening to my heart now.
Yeah, I love that. And so when you just said that a lot of things naturally fell away. And so I've had that happen a couple of times as well. And I
Mm.
just know also because I've been on this path for a while now, like you have. And I remember reading somewhere when things fall apart, they don't fall apart, they actually fall together. And I love that because that's actually, it just creates space for something new to happen. Because if everything is full, where are you going to put the new things? There's no space for it. And looking back now, when you think of that time, because you said, luckily I had a sister who wanted to drive, but it's you manifested that. You created a loving sister in your life that came with you. You created all of it. So when you look back now from where you are now and everything that you know now, to the point that you got into your car and drove to, because you how long was the drive?
I laugh because like I was just in such a hurry to get there. I
Okay.
believe we did it in like 46 hours.
And and what's normal if you don't rush?
Well, that's going without any stops. So like, we just took turns driving the whole way. Like we only stopped for restroom breaks and like to
Yeah.
eat. If people are staying at a hotel, to sleep each night, I mean, easily it could be like 4 to 5 days. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And so do you remember anything like did you have nice music with you? Like do you remember the conversations that you guys had in the car on the way over?
I mean, there was music. I can't say that I really remember what it was. Like I actually I was very emotional because I, once I got in that car, it was walking away from someone who had been my husband for 5 years, and we were together for 8. And so literally when I got in the car, it was driving away from that. And so
Yeah.
that was emotional. It was, like literally night and day difference in life, was being with someone for 8 years and then like, okay, now I'm going to the other side of the country and
Yeah.
we're not together anymore. And
Yeah.
uh so yeah, it was actually, I didn't have all the emotional tools I have now back then. And so I was a bit of I was heartbroken. So
Yeah.
it was an emotional drive.
And it's really, and it's good to hear in the sense of for anyone who feels like, oh, I'm stuck. I just don't know what to do. Like it's not all of a sudden you make the decision and yeah, everything's amazing. Like you still go through, human phases, things. And so, yes, no, it's not nice going through it. And it is also like that's how I look at things in any case. Like when something is not challenging, then it's also not really worth going through it because we came here for the growth. We came here for the challenges and for doing the things that are scary. Is that also how you view challenges and
Well, as you were showing that, the word that was coming to me was expansion. I really, it's,
yeah.
it's kind of saying the same thing, but yeah, the expansion, it's like, and actually I just posted this on Facebook earlier today.
Ah,
Uh, I was, it's a paraphrased quote that I saw in a film the other night. The film was called Chateau Christmas. It's kind of like one of those TV Christmas movies. And there's this line where someone says to this artist, this pianist who really has kind of like been doubting her capabilities, like he says to her, you don't need to prove what you're capable of to anyone else. Or I think he said, you don't need to show anyone else what you're capable of. He said, show yourself.
yeah. Yeah.
And so to me, like, yeah, the expansion, that is where we see with our own eyes and our own experience of like literally what creatively can flow through us,
Yeah.
into expression, into form, into a place where other people can actually see it or maybe touch it, or, some people are expressing things that can actually, you can eat, but it's all creation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, how do we really know unless we step into those invitations by our inner being or our soul for greater expansion, greater expression? Because like you said, if it's just kind of like, if there isn't really expansion for a while, for me, it just gets boring, you know?
I know. I'm built from the same material. Yeah. I'm looking for trouble then. I'm just like, okay, well, this is too easy. What, So yeah, I've learned now how to not cause too much disruption when I'm looking for more expansion, because that's
Mhm.
actually not comfortable at all.
Yeah.
I was I was just like, creating it, and then later realizing, I created all of this myself. So now when I'm looking for expansion, I know how to go about it in a way that I don't blow everything up and out of proportion. Yeah. So I want to ask you one more question, and then I think we have a really nice base, and maybe we can continue at another point with some extra questions. We'll see, but I love to keep this pretty, yeah, short and concise. So you moved to Los Angeles, and are you still there? Are you?
No, actually, I left in 2021.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not
So I
what the
haven't been there in a
question.
couple of years.
Okay, sorry. Yes, and you studied the acting.
Yes, yes.
So what what did you discover about you in the time that you been in LA?
Well, that's really where my journey inward really took roots. I hadn't really made space for any self-discovery or like inner work in my 20s. It just wasn't, I don't know, it just wasn't really on my radar. I was just doing my best to get by, to get through day to day. Uh, when I moved to Los Angeles, it was really cool. When I started, well, actually, when I first got there, I was doing improv, which was really fun.
Mm,
Really fun, really playful. So many amazing memories from improv in those classes. And then eventually I started scene study classes, and they were at a school that I actually used to dream about being in when I was still living on the East Coast in my like late 20s.
yeah,
I was just like, when I finally study acting, I want to go to that school. And so that's where I started my scene studies, the one that I had like dreamed about a few years prior. And that school, like the precipice, like their golden nugget of acting was all about being in the moment and
yeah,
just expressing naturally and authentically in the moment, like not pushing down natural instincts, like so like saying what you actually want to say, in the moment, like letting that natural expression come through. Like that was the basis. And so the teachers there were really cool because a lot of the teachers, like they would do like an intro talk before we got into the scenes, and a
yeah,
lot of them were talking metaphysics. Like,
yeah.
metaphysics is pretty, there's a lot of places in Los Angeles where people are talking metaphysics. And so my teachers were coming in and they were talking about, like Eckhart Tolle and Marianne Williamson, and I was just
Wow,
like, yeah,
no idea. That's really cool.
yeah. And so I was just like, whoa, like these, and they were like offering quotes, and they were like really touching me deeply. And I was just like, man, I need to find out more about these people they're quoting. And so that's where my inner quest began. Like, I started doing a lot of journaling, like asking really like, why am I this way? Or, like, why do I hold myself back? And why do I talk to myself like this? I was asking all those questions.
Was this also, these questions, did they also come as a natural consequence from what you were learning in school? Or was that kind of like a simultaneous different path?
Well, they encouraged inner discovery because I mean, one of the one of the most talked about quotes that came up as I was studying acting was know thyself.
Ah, yeah,
And
I
yeah,
love that. Yeah,
and so it's just like that comes up a lot in acting. It's like if you're gonna be a great actor, like know thyself, like
yeah.
really, because like how do you know when you're being honest or when you're pretending? It's like so know thyself.
I just realized, like when, so maybe you can comment on this because you studied it. So the best actors, when they play their part, you cannot like, it's like they are, you can feel they are the person that they are
Hmm.
portraying.
Yeah.
And I guess that they can only go to that space if they know how they themselves can go to that space when they are themselves. Is that how it works?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I've heard this. I mean, there's a lot of things you can hear while you're studying acting, but I should say, and one of the things I heard is that the actors that everybody talks about and they're like, oh my gosh, they're so good and they get nominated for all these awards. What I've heard, again, like third party, is that they're just masters of their emotions. They know that space where they can touch and they'll just begin crying tears.
Yeah.
They know that space. And I actually studied with an acting teacher before I went to Los Angeles. She had come back from Los Angeles, and so I took a few classes with her on the East Coast, and she had said, I know that spot that if I just go there, I'll burst out laughing. Like
Yeah.
all I have to do is go to that spot and I will just burst out laughing. She's like, I know how to touch that spot within myself.
I
And
love it.
so, yeah, I mean, how else are you going to know where those places, what those memories are,
Yeah.
those pockets of energy, if you will? How do you know unless you know thyself?
Yeah, amazing. I love that. What a valuable. So how many years did you do, were you studying this?
I studied acting pretty regularly, acting improv for 8 years.
What a, like I see this, how do you call this in English? Like this case with all this gold and treasure, a treasure
Treasure
box,
chest.
treasure chest. Yeah, treasure chest. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, but I was interrupting you. You were saying that's how. So Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, you dove into those teachers, and then you discovered more about yourself.
Yeah, it's just, of course, everything that they were offering, like the books and any like YouTube videos I could find, it was all just, yeah, it was about under like knowing yourself as consciousness.
Yeah,
And, like the consciousness is observing the thinking mind. And, prior to Eckhart Tolle, like I thought I was my mind, and
yeah,
my mind was a busy something. And, there
yeah,
was a lot of negativity and self-criticism and trying to be perfect. And so prior to Eckhart Tolle, I thought that I was my mind. And so when I started to lean into Eckhart Tolle, and I was just like, I could finally like experience it for myself. It's like, no, like I'm the awareness, and the awareness is aware of all of this phenomena, including the thinking mind.
yeah,
And so once there was a space between, once I realized there was the awareness and there was the thinking mind, I was able to like step back and start to be more curious about my mind rather than believing I was my mind.
yeah, yeah,
Same thing with my emotions. It was like, my emotions felt like, oh, this is me. And there was no space between, like I wasn't aware of the awareness that was watching the emotions. I just thought like when I was upset, like I was the upsetness,
yeah.
Uh,
I
and so
love
like,
that you say that you said curious, that you were curious about it, because
yeah,
curiosity also, like with yourself, with your emotions, with you, it also works with any other relationship instead of judging it or saying this is that. No, you can just become curious about what's going on
Yeah.
instead of putting it in a box.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's so true. That's a good thing to be reminded of that you really don't know. So yeah, being curious is a much it's a really gentle place to be. So thank you for saying that.
Wow. Oh my goodness. This is so cool. It's a pleasure to hear your experience so far. This is just like a pinprick of the life of Bo. Wow. So to end this for now, because I definitely want to ask you so many more questions.
Yeah.
To end this for now, um, what would you say have you become aware of in Los Angeles during this time frame?
What did I become aware of? Hmm. Hmm. I feel like I need just to absorb that for a second here. That's a good one. What did I become aware of? Hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything in LA was actually leading me to a very intimate relationship with, my higher self or my soul, my inner being. It was really leading me to a very intimate relationship. And it was also opening me up to the fact that like I am creator of my reality. And which if you've never really if that's never really been introduced to you before, it's like it's easy to dismiss. Again, it's like just thinking that life is random and who knows
Yeah.
why things are happening. So it was all leading me up to like you're at the center, and what you believe, will be shown to you, in your physical reality. What you most believe, your most deeply held perspectives, how you perceive things, like this will all be reflected back to you. And so like that's just to realize that you're at the epicenter of your creation, of your reality, really to me is an invitation to go deeper. Well, if this is all an expression of my inner world and, in one way or the other, wow, it feels really meaningful and important to be really conscious about what's happening inside here. And so it was all leading to that, like, like, no, this is all projected outward from inside. So like what you're doing with the inside all day long, like it matters. It's important. And
Mm.
so it all led me to that. And since, I was led to that place, it really has been about just being more and more conscious all the time, being intentional, being more curious, and also just realizing that because I am at the epicenter of my creation, to see where I've been limiting myself and to really remove those limitations so that, you know, better than I can ever imagine will become my experience.
I love that. Ooh, that's good. And I would love to speak to you about that another time. So for now, don't go. I want to end this recording, but you don't go anywhere yet. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Bo Timothy Waterman. And I will put everything where people can find you because you also do sessions, and like I'll put information um, where people can find you and find out more about you in the description. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm not even looking in the camera. It doesn't matter.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.